Low light portraits is one of the hardest things to capture, especially on a crop sensor body. And I've been doing this for years, and if you're afraid of noise being introduced in your shot, I'll let you in on a little secret. Embrace it. It's inevitable. So instead of running away from the noise, embrace the noise. Don't worry, people will understand. So in today's video, I'm going to show you how I shoot low light portraits in hopes that you can take what I share with you guys and apply it on your next low light photo session. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and in today's video I want to talk about this photo shoot that I did last year, February, during a winter storm. It's been over a year since this happened, man. Time flies. I was out with Anthony, my friend Jake, who was filming us, and Rachel, the model. I wanted to make this video since I have some of you guys asking for low light portrait tips. So why don't we just get started, and let's just start off with the gear that I use on this shoot. Since I use Fujifilm, you know it's going to be a crop sensor body. But you can use whatever camera you want, crop censored, full frame, medium format, whatever floats your boat. I've been getting great low light portraits with an APS-C sensor for years. It's proof that you don't always need full frame cameras, but full frame cameras does help clean the image right up, but it's not necessary. Also, if you have a camera with ibis, that would be clutch because you can use a slower shutter speed to allow in more light without introducing motion blur. So why would you want to do this? For the fact that you can lower the ISO without introducing noise. It's a delicate balance when it comes to this stuff. You gotta know when to push the ISO. You gotta know when you can like lower the shutter speed. And one of the ways you can lower the shutter speed is if you have ibis in the body or OIS in one of your lenses. And that's probably one of the reasons why my low light Fuji portraits looks a bit cleaner than everybody else. It's because I know my equipment. It's very important when you shoot with your gear to understand your gear and experiment on how far you can push your camera, such as your ibis. Experiment with your RAWs. And I can't say the last part enough. Your Fuji RAWs has so much information inside, so you can do some serious pushing and pulling to manipulate colors, to manipulate light, and you can also hide some of those noise away because of it. So experiment, guys. And again, I chose the Fujifilm X-S10 for this shoot because it has a nice quality sensor to it, and plus it has ibis. Although it's not weather sealed, it held up quite nice in this weather. The next option is the lens. Now, since this is a low light shoot, you're going to want to be shooting with a wide aperture. Anything from f2.8 to f2, f1.8, f1.4, f1.2, f1.0, and f0.95. All those lenses are good, but remember, the wider the aperture, the more light will be gathered to have a clean image. Otherwise, you're going to be introducing unwanted noise, and we don't want that. So again, choose the right tool for the right jobs. During this shoot, I was using the 7 Artisans 35mm f1.2 for the Fujifilm X mount, but any fast prime lenses can do. Whenever I go roam the city streets at nighttime, I always have an RGB LED light stick on me, just in case we don't have enough light. This is why it's important to go with at least one other photography buddy so they can help you hold the light and then you can return the favor. That's what you're seeing in this video. I got my buddy Anthony helping me out by holding the lights while I snapped some photos, and then once I was done, it was his turn to snap some photos, so I was the one holding the lights. I highly encourage you guys to find some photography buddies to shoot with because it will make the experience so much better. You guys can learn off each other, you guys can share tips and bounce ideas off each other, and you guys can grow faster than you would if you were to do this all by yourself. If you want to know what light stick I'm using, go check out the links down in the description below. There's something I have to talk to you about. Like, I'm being serious. I've been told by so many people online that they cannot shoot low light with an APS-C camera. So if they can't, you can't, right? That's how society works. If I can't do it, I'm going to make sure you can't do it too. Well, low light portraits has been my thing for a while now, and throughout all that time, I was using my Fujifilm cameras, starting with the X-T2, and I've gotten plenty of good shots with it. And so what if there's noise in the shot? And so what if it's slightly soft or out of focus? There would be a few people sometimes that would chime in on my low light shots in one of those Fujifilm Facebook groups, telling me that the image is noisy or I misfocus or the image is kind of soft. And all I'm thinking is, so what? Thank you for the feedback, but so freaking what? I honestly don't care about your opinion. Until you can show me your own low light shots, you're in no position to talk to me because I'm out here having fun, doing what I love. The noisy photos actually helps flex my creativity muscles. I'm out here learning about lighting, learning how to direct models, learning composition, learning storytelling, learning how to pose, learning how to better communicate with the subject learning how to operate my cameras, learning how far I can push the limits on my camera, learning how to post-process a noisy image. These are all skills that I've learned because I went out and took some noisy images. So my question is, do you want to be the person who complains about the noisy image, or do you want to be the person who took that noisy image? I've gotten my fair share of criticism when it comes to my noisy images. Don't let it faze you, because the amount of that I've learned through my noisy images made me a better photographer. It made me a better editor, and I'm a better person overall because of it. So embrace the noise. Don't be upset when people are shitting on your images. These are building blocks that will make you great. Thank you for letting me go on this tangent, and back to the show. So let's start off with the most important rule, guys, and you guys should probably know this by now. Rule number 1 to low light portraits or any photography at all is follow the light. Anthony suggested that we hit up this art installation because it had some cool lights at the harbor front. So that's what we did. As you can see here, this big block of light is what we use as our key light or the main light, whatever you want to call it. This was our primary light source. And once you find that light source, what you want to do is do your warm-up shots and experiment with the composition. Shooting photos like this, you're fairly limited to what your background looks like because the key light is stuck. You can't move that main light source around like you would your own studio lights. So it's important to angle the model in a way to avoid any distractions from the background. And this is why I always say it's important to do your warm-up shots so you can get a feel of what's around the surrounding areas when you take a photograph. And I like taking 10 to 15 minutes just to shoot and getting a feel of the person's strength when it comes to posing. And what I look for in the background is to look for more lights in the distance, from apartments to business buildings, the shops on the ground floor, and the traffic light. When shooting low light stuff, these things that I'm looking for adds visual interest. They are part of the bokeh in the background. I can also use those lights and manipulate them even further in post by changing the colors around. And because I'm shooting at f1.2, those lights will become bokeh balls in the background, thus creating visual interest for the viewers. What I like about this art installation is that it changes colors. So we were working with different colors, different temperatures at any given moment, which does add a bit of pressure because we don't know when it's changing. And if you like a certain color that the art installation was emitting, you're going to have to wait a full cycle before it returns back to that color that you like. But I was working with the color red for a minute and I didn't like this color, as you can see in these photos. The color red I find is just too powerful. I'm not a fan of red as a key light. Maybe as an accent or a rim light or a hair is fine, but red just sort of makes you lose focus on the human subject. And it kind of makes them look otherworldly, demonic. But then the light installation does change color and we get something like this, where the LED light is bright and it seemed like it's a cool white light. This is where you're able to see the person's face and the eyes a bit better. And shooting portraits is all about making connections with the eyes. The eyes are the windows to the soul. And then once we got warmed up a bit, we were able to hit our stride. And in some of these shots right here that I took with Rachel, my ISO was at ISO 1250 and my shutter speed was at 1/60th of a second, while shooting it at wide open at f1.2 with the 7 Artisans 35mm f1.2. ISO 1250 is an ISO number that I'm comfortable at, and for the shutter speed, most people would want to try to shoot this at 1/250th of a second or 1/500th of a second to get a sharp image. But we can't do that in low light portraits. If you want to use those shutter speeds, you can, but by doing that, you're going to need to increase that ISO. And we all know that increasing the ISO means you're going to increase the chances of noise coming in. So we don't want that. But thankfully, the XS10 has ibis, and this helps because I can lower my shutter speed, which allows in more light, and the ibis will counteract any shakiness coming from my hands. And again, these are my settings and what I'm comfortable with. I'm pretty sure I can lower my ISO even more and my shutter speed even lower to keep the noise down. But sometimes when the environment is working against you, you don't have time to slow down and think. The weather was cold, we were getting wet, there was a snowstorm happening, so it was just best for me to just have these settings down and not worry about it at all. The art installation for the most part was giving a consistent light source, even though it changes colors every couple of minutes, but the luminosity does not change, so my settings didn't change as much as well. But again, I highly recommend you guys experiment with your camera and experiment with your shutter speed and with the ISO that you're comfortable in using. Some of you guys may have steadier hands than me, so you guys can use a slower shutter speed, probably something like a 1/50th of a second. And in doing so, you can lower your ISO so much more and it'll help improve your overall image quality. Another tip that I have for you when shooting in low light is to shoot in bursts if you can. That way, not only do you have options, but what I usually do is hope that one of those burst shots that I took gets into focus, because it's usually the first few that are slightly soft, and then the mid to towards the end part of the burst are where I have the keepers. And these are the shots that are in focus, or slightly in focus, and I'll take it. And afterwards, we walked to a different location exploring the harborfront in Toronto, and we found this little pier. The pier had a good composition, as I saw a leading line composition in my head. But at this location, there weren't any light installations, so we were going to be relying on my LED light stick a lot more. I could have chose any color that I wanted, but I ended up choosing a warmish yellow color. I had an idea in my head. The snow was falling a lot, so it added texture in the background, which I think is dope. It was so cold, I was just thinking in my head that I would use a cool tone mixed with the snow falling down to convey how cold the weather was that evening. This is where my minimal knowledge of color theory came into play. If I decided that the scene is set up to be a cool tone, dark image, the complementary color to cool tones is warm tones. So like I said earlier, I chose a warmish yellow color to use as a key light. And then I got something like this. It was giving Gotham vibes, which is awesome because I love the Batman movies. The Dark Knight is one of my favorite superhero movies of all time, and I just love whenever filmmakers try to show the city of Gotham, it's always shrouded in darkness and with clouds, and just it rains all the friggin' time. So I wanted to give a little flair to it of my own. I shot this at ISO 3200, so you can see some noise and some grittiness here, but I like the way it turned out. I like the images, even though there's noise, I still find it to be acceptable. So f them haters. I get that constructive criticism is a thing, and I'll listen to criticism any day, but I also recommend that you get constructive criticism from people that you feel are better than you skill level wise. That way, it's going to be someone you respect, someone that you feel knows what the they're talking about. Why are you going to take constructive criticism from a person whose images are always crooked? It doesn't make sense. I'm not saying ignore the other folks completely, but don't take what they say with that much weight. But then again, if there is a general consensus that agrees with the criticism, that's when you should take that constructive criticism into consideration. But other than that, if you think your photos look dope, that's all that matters. Someone else out there will share the same feelings for the photo, even if there are some who don't like it. The only way to get good at low light is to experiment and make mistakes, guys. Don't be afraid to f up, and if you do f up and didn't get the images that you would like, don't worry, there will be plenty more opportunities to come in the future. So make as much mistakes as you can, embrace the noise, embrace the darkness and the shadows. Don't be afraid of the noise, it's bound to happen. People will understand. Go out and shoot with a buddy, have him or her hold on to the lights, and just go out and have fun. And dress warmly, and don't go out and shoot during the snowstorm. That was really dumb on my part. My question to you guys is, do you guys find low light photography hard? Let me know in the comments section below. If you find this video helpful or valuable, do me a favor and subscribe to my channel. I would greatly appreciate that. If you are interested in the LED lights or any of the gear that I mentioned in this photo shoot, links to them are down in the description below. As always, my name is Tongue, and I'll see you in the next video. I love you. Okay, bye.